Humanity is an incredibly communicative species. Ever since we have created the first records asserting our existence, we have been socializing with additional members. We spread ideas, knowledge, skills, and etc. through this incredible gift we have amassed over the eons. The ability to communicate allowed us to create societies that eventually alter the environment itself. While it may seem weird, this process built the very foundations of many of the cities we have today, like Chicago, to which transfer of information, facilitated by modern technology, provoked the large-scale demographic changes visible to this day. Let us analyze some such changes. Beginning in the 18th century, the US is an industrializing and expanding nation. The creation of new transportation and manufacturing technology allowed industry to generate large outputs in regards to products which normally takes into some human labor to generate. There also existed technology to transport these goods over to long distances and reach a variety of customers. Such as the efficiency of the system that entrepreneurs sought to comb the entirety of the US in search of these valuable materials used to create the necessary machines. A large migration boom from Europe and Asia fed the industry's cravings for cheap labor, and many of such migrants also wished to establish a living in the frontiers. Transferring one's focus from the nation as a whole to the city, the geography is quite apparent. A land which sits by a vast body of water surrounded by fertile fields blooming with flora and fauna. There are rich coal and iron deposits ready to be plundered by the aspiring industrialists. This region is simply destined to be settled and exploited, and all they did. Factories are created, farms established, and thousands flock into the fertile fields to generate a living. Steamboats and railroads brought along the additional raw materials needed to be assembled into the finished product. The prosperity in turn drew even more people into the region, as migrants sought to earn wages from the factories. These include the Germans, Poles, Italians, Irish, Lithuanians, Chinese, and Japanese, but the predominant workforce consists of the Germans. Eventually, the migrants will gather around into ethnically similar communities aimed at preserving the various cultures which present itself in the city. We can usually see such demographics to this day. Not only is the rise of immigration triggered by the news of such opportunities in Chicago, but there also arises a spirit of intellectualism as intellectuals arrive into Chicago, lured by the businessmen craving for additional support within their businesses. With their minds, these people began to formulate additional improvements to their technologies which ran the company, increasing efficiency and encouraging even greater economic growth. These technologies include the railroad and the telegraph. Intellectuals may also flow from various sectors of the United States if the city experiences a disaster, such as the Great Chicago Fire of the 1870s, and their contributions in reconstructing the city in a manner that is resistant to future firestorms is invaluable in protecting both lives and property, along with the economy of the city. While we're discussing the inflow industry, migrants, and intellectualism, we still haven't touched on the medium which makes this possible: the rise of the railroad and the telegraph. The railroad to feed the growing industry and migration boom, plus the use of the telegraph to relay news and information regarding the economy between industries. In a way, the existence of these two technologies are intertwined, and we will see why. The railroad is extremely important for any industry when exporting either raw material or manufactured goods, and the speed to which they travel allows them to transport them over long distances. But why would a factory export its goods over such long distances if they have no way to communicate with the receiver? Well, this can be solved by the telegraph. These simple machines send electrical pulses along wires strung across the continent, and the speed to which the pulses travel is near the speed of the light, which might as well be instantaneous. When one decodes the information from the pulses, they can then translate them into English, and this process can be performed between two stations hundreds of kilometers apart, nearly instantaneously. Turns out with the rise of these factories also entails the rising consumption of any technology which brings about increased speed in regards to communication. But not only is the use of these telegraphs important for business, they also allow journalists to spread information from faraway places into the headquarters of newspaper giants. There, the masses can be influenced dramatically based on the information from these faraway places. Perhaps one familiar case would be the California gold rush. The news of the discovery of gold in the mid-19th century spread quickly to the east, aided by the use of a telegraph that attracted hordes of prospectors into the would-be state. The consequences are enormous. Native Americans of California are forced from their ancestral lands as the migrants broke the ground in search of this valued material that is gold. California went from a faraway possession of the U.S. into a major U.S. state within several years. It will also be mentioned that Chicago is a major epicenter of the Western Telegraph Network, which undoubtedly received news from of the gold deposits from the West and transferred it along the rest of the U.S. To give us an idea on how connected Chicago actually is to the rest of the US, we can try to see a map of Chicago with the telegraph lines across the eastern portion of the US. Here we can see the city of Chicago off the southern shore of Lake Michigan, thoroughly connected to the East Telegraph network of the eastern United States. In fact, by the late 19th century, the state is the second largest consumer of telegraphic services, enabling some of it to happen to share news, letters, or report to bars around the United States quite rapidly. Today, Chicago is quite magnificent in terms of the buildings, vibrant culture, and politics, but the results of which we have now manifested so from far humbler beginnings. If we were to view the growth of any city around the world, we may begin to draw several conclusions to their rise. The rise of the magnificent metropolises may have started as nothing more than an empty field, before individuals begin to trickle into a region, establish industries from the surrounding resources, and invite migrants to work and create products. Not much of this will have been achieved if not for the use of long-distance communication and transportation. Without the telegraph, news from the west of economic opportunity will have reached the west at a slower pace, ultimately slowing in influx of migration and industry as they will never receive news of such grand opportunities anyway. A lack of railroads could also pose similar consequences for the development of the West. While there may still be establishment of a settlement in Chicago and the western United States, the growth will be lackluster. Without the massive development of long-range communication devices, there won't have been much of an incentive to migrate west. These adventures provided the groundwork for the rapid growth of much of the city as we know it, and with the rise of itself, contributed to the overall connectivity of society. This is the end of the presentations.